Hello, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to State of Play on 6++. Tom, very lowest of men here. I'm back once again with this faction specialist show that focuses on particular armies at a moment in time, how they're getting on in the game, and looks at some recent successes for them as well. And I am devastated to have to inform you that the nemesis of the team, Jack Tite, has unfortunately gone and won a super major again. Jack Tite, how are we doing?
I'm doing great, Tom. I think for a lot of people, well, for myself lately, I've had a small crisis of confidence when it comes
Yeah.
to playing 40k. So
Mhm.
this event was exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
And playing sisters, just it all feels like home, right?
Yeah.
Playing
Yeah.
sisters, doing all with sisters, is where I want to be.
I think I definitely very much have a theory that the armies that we're really invested in and that we really gel with are actually the ones that we get the best performance out of. Right? I think sometimes it's like they reward us for that passion and that affection. And so, watching you storm through the rounds with Sisters at Coventry definitely helped confirm that for me. So yeah, as I say, we'll talk about the runner form in a little bit because I think that perhaps tells us something about the style of army and what's drawn you back to them and everything else, right? Because I think it's fair to say sisters and the way they play really suit you and what you're really good at in the game. But obviously, before we do that, it's worth saying thanks very much everyone for tuning in. Please do hit like and subscribe. And it's also worth saying that Jack runs coaching with us via 6++ these days. So if you're interested in getting some sisters coaching from a man who has literally just taken out a super major with them, he'd be very happy to help you out. So get in touch with us via the Discord or via email and we'll sort you out. Okay, Jack, let's set the scene. As you say, you've had a few weeks, which by your standards, which are phenomenally high, haven't been ones to remember, right? So going into this event, what took you back towards Sisters? Why have sort of Sisters of Battle and Adeptus Sororitas suddenly sort of landed as something that you're really excited to play? And what did you think gave them an edge going into this meta?
Yeah, so I guess the reason I started playing around with sisters again is that I needed an army that I felt happy playing for the ITT. I needed an army that I could feel confident I knew, what my matrix was, what I
Yes.
was going to get out of the games.
Mhm.
Now, why look at sisters again is I think they've been on a bit of a sneaky uprising, I think, in the
They
last
sure
few
have.
weeks. And I think it's very much gone under the radar.
Mm.
I think there's two main, I think, reasons for that. I think the first one is there was the small buff to retributors in the data slate, which
Yeah.
you read it and it does come across as not being actually a particularly big buff, right?
Mhm.
They effectively went from, instead of losing their reroll ones to hit and ones to wound when they go into a +1 to hit, +1 to wound target, they now just get both.
They get both. Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
doesn't look like a lot, but actually gaining reroll ones to hit and ones to wound on units that are +1 to hit and wound really actually ups their
100%,
consistency
especially when it's like
to a
melter
rather
shots, right? You think about the impact of
exactly.
each individual melter shot. If you actually get more of them through, is a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think you end up converting about 50% extra. I think you go from like 4 to 6 in a lot of cases,
Mm,
which is a big deal.
mm,
Especially for sisters, which traditionally have been an army that have maybe lacked for high damage output units. I
mhm.
think while Val and her paragons have always been a very well known quantity in that if you get shot by this unit,
You
you
die.
die. If you get
Yeah.
charged by this unit, you die.
Yeah.
A lot of their other output came from having to combo up immolators and castigators and stuff, which often meant that if they wanted to kill things, they had to really commit to a problem.
Yes.
Which in a lot of cases in the modern game where everything is extremely lethal, often meant they were losing 4 to 5 units in the follow-up turn.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's reason number one. I think reason number two is the introduction of the Sanctifier kill team.
Yeah.
Now that unit has really filled a gap that I think Sisters didn't really have before, which was some really powerful turn one pressure that they
Mm,
can apply on their opponent. Sisters have always been an extremely good go second army. Their high unit count, trading nature just means that they're naturally very suited to playing a 5-turn game of Warhammer.
mhm.
Where they've always had slightly more issues is in games where they're forced to go first, and you can put pressure on people, but you're not necessarily putting pressure on the right kinds of units.
Mhm.
5 dominions with Melter and an Immolator doesn't threaten your opponent's early game stuff.
Yeah.
What Sanctifiers do is they give you the ability to go, oh, you didn't stop me scout moving. Okay, I went first. These these 9 sanctifiers, they're going to drive with their rhino over to your home ruin. They're going to disembark. They're going to flamer one of your units to death, and I'm going to stand there next to another one and go, cool. I'm going to flamer that to death if it moves as well.
Yeah.
And this gives sisters the ability to really lock down their expansion on turn 1.
Yeah, because that buys
which
you
is
so much space, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
which is another thing that they've traditionally, I think, had a few issues with, especially on UKTC, where if you're running a list of OC1 models, you can only realistically put 1 OC or 3 OC on a lot of like the search and destroy maps and stuff. Sanctifiers just buy you loads of space to play the game with, which is great when you're an army that wants to stage in some somewhat aggressive positions and then really threaten to go after people in the following turns.
Yeah, so I think those two changes are massive, right? It's like it's just filling out the toolkit a bit. It's like, as you say, we know Castigators are good, we know Val is good, and obviously Dominion tricks are fun for baiting people out and everything else. But now you've actually got other damage dealers that are a bit cheaper and more throwaway. You've also got that crucial early turn pressure from the Sanctifiers, which is it's a bit like having a sort of a beast pack with flamethrowers, right? It's getting in there, it's getting in the opposing face immediately and causing absolute mayhem. So I think, as you say, we've seen globally, Sisters results have just started to tick up and trend up, and people have just started to cotton onto this. And so obviously that brings us to your decision point to bring them to Coventry. And it sounds like there's lots of sort of comfort logics behind that, and it's an army you know really well. One thing we saw at Coventry was that the overwhelming majority of people who brought Sisters, and actually it's fair to say the majority of Sisters results around the world at the moment, are centering mainly around Hallowed Martyrs, right? So obviously for yourself, you went back to good old Bringers of Flame. So what was the decision point behind that?
So I think Sisters are in a really interesting spot at the minute where there is genuinely 3 of the 4 detachment or 5 detachments that are very competitive. I think one of them's decent, but isn't quite as good as the other 3. I think Hallowed Martyrs for a lot of people is the standout. So I guess I'll start with what Hallowed Martyrs does well. Hallowed Martyrs is really, really good at playing into melee armies. It's a phenomenal anti-melee army, and in fact, it's just very good into mono-phase armies in general. It handles the shooting armies by rezzing onto points. It handles the melee armies through really powerful fight on deaths with units that on paper don't look that bad to be fought on death by, but once you throw all the buffs in, you're talking about 10 Sacrosants picking up 14, 15 Khorne Berserkers on a fight on death. That's the level of power they have. But Hallowed Martyrs does have a couple of problems, which is that it doesn't exert pressure on your opponent to make decisions. So in matchups where it's not favored, it really struggles to get mistakes out of your opponent to then turn the games into wins. I think a lot of Hallowed Martyrs games where it's not a favorable matchup often turns into I'm going to try and draw better cards than you, which is not the definition of reliable play. I think for teams, Hallowed Martyrs is, I think, one of the best teams detachments the game's had since it came out, really, since the Index days. And I think it will maintain its role as I'm going to score 8 to 12 points into literally everything in the game. And I may beat 1 or 2 armies with like a 15. Bringers of Flame, in general, has a much more violent approach to its games. There's a lot more, okay, you messed up, I'm going to kill you now. And I think in a singles environment, I think having that is very important. You need to be able to, in matchups where you're not favored, of which I think I played 2 or 3, maybe over Coventry, where I'm like, I don't think I should win this game, is where being able to go, well, if I make certain decisions which are going to put you under pressure, where it's like, okay, if you don't respond to this threat, next turn I'm going to make choices that are going to be really bad for you, just because of the speed and mobility provided through Bringers. I think one of the best examples is Retributors, and the difference in mobility between the ones I'm running and one of the runs most people are running is, in Hallowed Martyrs, they move 6 and shoot. In Bringers, because you have loads of transports, they will inevitably in a transport, so yours can move up to 15 and shoot.
This is just such a crazy difference.
2.5 times threat range. So it allows you to put opponents under much greater pressure to make mistakes.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and
actually,
I
what
think
what we
it's
saw time and again when you were playing the games was they end up ceding really important ground as a result. That's the difference, right? The difference between 9 and 15 in terms of where they can go
mm,
actually literally drives opponents back and out of
yeah,
very important parts of the board, which is huge.
yeah, exactly. And it's all about just giving yourself ways of playing yourself out of a bad matchup that
Mm.
I don't necessarily think the other two good detachments have currently. I think they're much better for teams. I say this as I probably will be playing bringers for teams
Yeah,
still,
yeah,
just because it has many more.
but that's a
I'm
role.
going to win. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly
exactly.
right. So much more. I'm going to win with 20 type list.
Yeah, completely. And so I think one thing it's worth saying on Bringers, obviously, we know you've got the assault, you get the extra strength. Were there any other key toolkits from Bringers itself that you were leaning on during the event, or was it largely the speed and the
It's
reach?
it's interesting because bringers really has been hit pretty hard when you compare it to other equivalent type detachments, right?
Yeah,
They only get their +1 strength within 6 and not 12. A lot of their strats cost 2 CP. So a lot of the time, there's only really one strat that I tend to use,
yeah,
which is you give your transport reroll advances and you get to disembark after it advances.
yeah,
This is predominantly just so you can extend that threat range just
yeah.
a bit
It's
further
just
on all
all
of these
about the speed.
units.
Yeah, yeah,
It's all about Rhino scout moving 6 and then going 15 to, or say, yeah, like 15 to 18 turn 1 and then disembarking 3 with your sanctifiers.
yeah,
And just because you have such a great threat range is you really get to sit defensively.
mm,
You can really sit in parts of the map that are hard for your opponent to interact with, just because next turn it's like, well, I can go 18 if I need to, so
yeah.
I don't need to be in this slightly more aggressive spot where you could interact with me. I can just sit here.
Yeah, and we saw that in a
um
couple of the games, right, where the difference between an advance maybe gets me there to an advance does get me there is wild. You played against Renegade Raiders, obviously we'll talk about that a bit later, where in theory that's quite a similar army to you, but because
yeah,
it doesn't have miracle dice,
yeah,
it's slightly handicapped in how quick it is, and it just meant all the time they weren't sure quite how to get in the game in comparison to you, right?
yeah, exactly. The consistency of miracle dice combined with army wide assault makes a far more powerful
Yeah.
advance and shoot army than I think anything else in the game can put on the table.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Okay, well let's look ahead to Coventry. Obviously, this is an 8 game event. This is the marathon event of the UK season. Um, and for yourself, obviously, you are in the position here of you're designing a Bringers of Flame Sisters list for 2025. So this is slightly retrodden but also new territory, right? So what changes did you make? How did you design a list to play the current meta in the current UKTC terrain? And what sorts of key ingredients did you work into the list?
I think what's really interesting about the list development is it hasn't actually had that many changes from the original one I put on the board as a tester. I think, and the other weird thing is that all of my practice games in the run up for Coventry were on WTC terrain, just because
That's great. Yes, I was
that's what people are
watching you
wanting
kill
to
some
play at the
people
minute,
on it.
right?
Yeah,
Everyone's practicing for the England Prestige event, so
yeah.
um, what lists do you need for sisters? Well, I took, I think, a rather different approach to how most sisters players are list building at the minute. A lot of
Mhm.
sisters lists at the moment have loads and loads and loads of just chaff,
Mm.
characters, just stuff that generates miracle dice and is very good at standing in places and doing an action.
Mm.
Um, and I sort of took the opposite approach and went, well, what if I took all of that out and just took more
Just took
guns?
murder instead.
Um,
Yeah,
because I think what it's really easy to miss in Sisters list building is going, oh no, my retributors, I need to sacrifice this unit here. It's an 105 point unit, right? Like it's not actually that expensive to have to use them to move block something for a turn.
yeah,
And if you can find any other value that you can get on the way out, that unit has earned its points back, right? Even if it pops out and kills a rhino and then move blocks someone, you've you have earned your 105 points back.
yeah,
It
yeah,
might not be how you wanted to use them, but it's definitely not a terrible trade.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
so my list in general is actually very light on true trading units, right? Like I have two 5-man units of bolter dominions that get split off from the Himalayas.
mm.
I have two empty rhinos, maybe, or some rhinos with some stuff in it, and one solo Canoness and 1 solo Dialogus. 2 of those can't screen enemy units at all, really. Another 2 of those can't really do it either, let's be honest. Neither rhinos or single characters are move blocking people or getting in the way anywhere, really.
Yeah.
So you kind of just... Your approach to people staging on you is you just kill them. Like, you find something in your army that can reach the ruin they're sitting in, and you just kill the unit that's in there, or you try and cripple it before it comes out.
Yeah.
So my list is just... It's just all the damage, right?
Yeah.
And my trades are damage, right? I will trade a damage unit to kill a slightly less damaging unit because I have more of them than the opponent.
Yeah, completely.
And the list is sort of designed to work in 3 waves. It's not strictly required to work that way, but it often does. You have sort of the first wave, which is, the Sanctifiers. They come out of the rhinos, they do some damage, they kill some things. Your opponent then has to overcommit into them a little bit because they res D3 models, which is, I think, a really important part of their stat line. It just, with a 5-up invuln and a res, it means they're just prone enough to scamming people that they can't overcommit into them.
They're the classic push unit. You don't know quite what you want to deal with into it, and then there's always 1 or 2 still alive, and it all goes wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And then wave 2 is sort of the immolators and the castigators. You sort of put these tank chassis in front of people. The lovely thing with transports and in tanks in general is that they tend to require more commitment for their points than they cost, especially transports, right? We all know how ridiculously hard to kill rhinos and immolators and stuff are for their points cost. And then what killing all of these units does is it triggers the Retributors having +1 to hit and wound everywhere. So then by the time your 3rd wave of Retributors and Morven comes out, your whole army is +1 to hit, +1 to wound, with dice rerolls, with miracle dice, at which point the math doesn't... It's really hard for the math to go wrong at that point, right? And you're so likely to do the things you want to do with those units. And because your opponent's already been shot at and interacted with by 10 different units.
Yeah.
At this point, when you send these final 4 units out, they are almost certainly out of units to play the game.
They're in disarray, right?
Yeah, they may have 2 or 3 units left, but none of them are winning the game at that point.
Yeah. So it's a lovely push list. It's just wave after wave, puts the pressure on, disrupts the game plan for them, and just puts them basically in a headlock, right? And if they don't kill the way out, they die. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well then let's think a little bit on the event itself. Let's talk about your run. 8 games, a lot of different missions, including Pose the Foe twice. Let's talk through the run itself, what your learnings were, any kind of matchups, and what you learned about those matchups, and then we can reflect on the sort of the position of the army afterwards as well. So, talk us through your day 1. Let's go.
Yeah. So day 1, game 1, I was drawn into the Grey Knights on Terraform.
Okay.
And actually, Grey Knights is often an interesting game for Sisters because I think the more they skew towards Silver Tide, a lot of the time the harder the matchup actually comes for Sisters.
Yeah.
Because a lot of your early game trades don't work.
Yeah.
As we'll get to in a moment. So, but the mission is very good for me. Terraform is a very good mission to be playing an army with half my...
With loads of stuff. Yeah.
So, I was feeling all right. My opponent went first, and he gave me quite a lot of units turn 1 for him to start doing his terraforms. And then, as I mentioned earlier, oftentimes early Sisters trades don't work into 5 Grey Knight bodies. So I try not to overcommit because obviously that is a way of losing the game, is giving them slightly too much turn 1. So I tried to kill, I think, 2 5-man units that are in the middle of the board with some Dominions and an Immolator, and I think I had some other Melter pop shots on the other unit. And effectively what ended up happening was I only killed 2 models from each of those units, which isn't exactly how the math says that should go. No. But the problem is when you have these really low volume shooting and you haven't built up a miracle dice pool yet, it's very prone to having issues like this happen.
Yeah, so actually I watched you trying to kill some Legios on a point later on. And as I was watching, I was like, he's going to chuck a grenade here because there's no way he's leaving that down to 4 shots. He's just not going to do it.
Absolutely. So I was a bit worried. My opponent then in his next turn was like, okay, I've unterraformed some points. I've taken him off his primary. He's starting to go, okay, maybe I should, you know, put a little bit more out, put some more stuff out, puts his Dread Knights out, kills like a few chaff units. And I'm like, okay, I see the game we're going to play. We're now just going to play the violence game. So here's my whole army. I'm going to see if I kill everything in front of me in a turn. Because in my head, I'm like, I've got to worry about the crow brick ingressing in at some point. So if I can
Yes.
clear the table out before it comes in, that's easier.
Mhm.
My opponent makes my life easier by ingressing the crow brick in front of two castigators.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Now, his reasoning for that was because I either had to choose between shooting that with the castigators or shooting the 5 purifiers on the objective with the castigators. What my opponent unfortunately missed was that Morven Val and the grenade launchers on the Paragons were also in range to shoot Crow's unit. So what actually ended up happening was I killed, I think, 8 models from Crow's unit.
Oh.
I left the purifiers in the middle on one model being contested by my one Canoness. I
Oh.
killed both Dread Knights. I killed all the other power armor bodies, and then the game
Okay.
was
That'll
largely
do it.
over.
Don't ingress in
Um,
front of all the guns, guys. There's a
yeah.
lesson for you.
So that ended up being a pretty comfortable win, I
Mhm.
think. And I still think Grey Knights can be tricky if there's a couple of bad dice spikes early
Oh,
on in the
100%.
game. But otherwise, if you manage to get through the early game, I think it's quite comfortable for sisters.
For sure. And so, Purge the Foe next.
Yeah, we have the first of 2 purge rounds, which traditionally is my nemesis. So I was really hoping that I would draw someone with lots of units and something that'd be nice and easy to play purge on. So what I drew was Wrath of the Rock Dark Angels, with a couple units of Deathwing Knights, the Lion, a nice beefy Gravis Captain, a few smaller units that a lot of the Wrath of the Rock lists don't have, but nonetheless, in my head I was like, okay, so my opponent can make this a real headache for me, I think. And then I went first, which is obviously always the tricky thing on Purge. And I did make a decision this game actually to my normal Astrid Thurger and Dolan, who's one of the characters I've been running pretty heavily with my Retributors to give them dev wounds. I actually didn't attach them this game because
Mhm.
giving dev wounds to units against Dark Angels is a bit of a handicap because they've got
Yeah.
4 Fiona Pains versus them everywhere.
Mhm.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to really threaten this hold more turn 1, really get my opponent to put some units out. So I put them on the middle objective. I did my sabotage. Really drove up some tanks along the bottom of the map on Crucible and was like, right, okay, he has to make some choices here to
Mhm.
really, what he wants me to do. And he responded with by retaking the middle, retaking the bottom objective. Killed a couple of units, but because I got a kill turn 1, it was even kill. This is the one turn of the game I can afford to lose 4 units, right? Like there's no kill more for round 1.
Mhm.
Um, so turn 2, I'm like, okay, he's not really giving me anything great yet, so I'm going to put the pressure up a bit. I'm going to trade a unit of Retributors that into a unit of Deathwing Knights that hasn't killed anything yet. So obviously I'm hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s with -1 to be wounded. So it's not reliable, but it puts the pressure on by going, just so you know, I can do this 2 more times. At
Yeah.
some point in the game, you are going to have a bad invuln roll, and I'm going to
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
to through these Deathwing Knights.
Yeah.
Um, this first time, I didn't kill any, but the threat of them being there, I think he felt pressured that he was going to get screened out otherwise, so he ingressed his other unit. He ingressed the Lion in. He ingressed his other unit in, and we were like, okay. I think he did those over 2 separate turns, but it
Yeah.
effectively ended up in the same place. And it was like, okay, now next turn is going to be the fight turn. He comes out with a Lion. He takes 7 damage on Overwatch from Morven Val. He charges into Morven Val and kills
Oh no.
1 Paragon.
Yeah.
But it worked out okay because my opponent forgot to charge. He was clearly going to charge Azrael and Sternguard in as well. Forgot to do it. I was like, fine, just charge them in.
Oh,
It's like
nice. Okay.
I thought you were going to do it. He
Yeah.
rolled the 11-inch charge you needed for them to get in, and then those two killed the other 2 Paragons on their own.
Nice.
So Morven then failed to kill the Lion back, and I was like, oh, okay, this is actually a bit of a tricky spot. I have to
Yeah.
clear out the Lion. with a 3-up Invan and a 4-up versus mortals. I have to kill in the middle of the board. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just see what happens. So we full send with everything pretty much. And I think the end of the turn is I've killed the lion, I've killed one unit of Deathwing Knights, I've put the other unit down to 2 models and its captain. Azrael is annoyingly still alive. He decidedly didn't want to die that turn. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm in a bad spot here because I'm
Yeah.
like in my head in my next turn, I'm like, I'm going to lose this, and this, and I do lose all of those things. But
Blimey.
I think what I didn't appreciate was in the late game how useful just having the 2 castigators alive would be.
It's always huge. Yeah.
Effectively, these 2 castigators ran around killing his units, being unkillable back, and tagging his Deathwing Knights every turn. Which
Oh,
with
really?
with Armor of Contempt, 2 Deathwing Knights and the captain can't really
Don't get
kill
a
a
castigator.
castigator.
That's great.
So I was actually finding on round 4 and 5, I was getting kill mores I wasn't expecting. And then I had a play on turn 5, which involved auto advancing a Rhino 6 to give my opponent hold none.
Oh, nice.
And that really got me across the line.
Yeah.
I think I got quite fortunate that my opponent drew dud cards turn 5, so it looks like it was a much bigger win margin than I think I had planned for in my head on turn 4 and 5. So we got through that game, but that I think was a very tricky game to
Completely.
navigate for on Purge.
Yeah, I think as a general rule, Purge is one of those missions that, yeah, you need to really play your way through with certain armies at UKTC events. It just is a real stumbling block if you want to play certain things. So 1 down, Jack. 1 down. And then how was your final game on day 1?
I then played Mr. Darren Chapman from Black.
Oh, interesting. Drakari.
The Drakari man himself.
Oh, a game you and I have played enough times. Okay.
It is. The interesting is I hadn't actually played against the new Drakari book.
Okay, there you go.
So I was a little worried going into it because I know that while traditionally sisters have been pretty good into Drakari, I don't have any Seraphim, which is normally the one thing that really gives them headaches. And 2, I don't know what the book does comfortably, right? Like I know in my head, like I've read the book. I'm pretty confident I know bits and pieces, but there's a couple of points where I make decisions and make mistakes where I think I wouldn't make now that I've played against it.
That makes sense.
We were playing on Hidden Supplies. I went first, and I was like, okay, Drew, bring it down turn 1, and I saw 2 Kronos, and I was like, well, I don't think I'm going to score this card, but I can at least give it a good go. So I send my Sanctifiers out to sort of look into his homebrewing, to Flamer. He didn't put any of his valuable units in there because we talked quite a lot about the threat range before the game. I think there was just 5 Witches and 5 Rex in there. I advanced an Immolator up to the top flank to shoot at these Kronos. I get some Melted Sisters out to also shoot the Kronos. And I was like, well, we'll see what happens. Otherwise, I think I'm in a pretty good spot on the board. I've put my Canoness on the middle objective, so he just has to deal with the 2-up Invan model. And what actually happens is I shoot all the Melters and the Hunter Killer into these Kronos and kill 1. And then I shoot the Sanctifier unit. I actually had to put the 2 once per game Flamers also into the Kronos to get the kill on one of them. And then I put the other Flamers off into a split between the Racks and the Witches, right? Because the way I view it is I don't need to kill either of those units this turn. But if I can make both units unusable, then that
does the same thing.
That achieves the same thing. And I think I killed 3 of the Witches, but I only killed 1 of the Racks, which was unfortunate, but not unreasonable. And I can now stand here and threaten an Overwatch.
Nice.
Then we get to what I think was my first mistake, which I kind of got away with, but it's the Kronos Pain Token ability.
Oh yeah,
I've left a Kronos on exactly full wounds.
Oh my word!
And there's a whole unit of Sanctifiers next to him. So the Kronos flies over, and he's like, right, so I think I'm going to take your expansion this turn. And in my head, I'm like, Kronos is 2 OC. I've got like 5 on there and 5 in this transport. And he was like, right, I'm going to shoot this thing here. I'm going to pop the pain token. I killed a model. Right, I'm going to bring a whole Kronos back 2 inches closer to you. And I was like, I didn't realize they did that. I was like, so that definitely wasn't the right choice turn 1. Fortunately, Darren didn't really math properly either, and didn't math that I had 5 OC on that
Oh,
objective, and that he
oh,
only had 4.
got
So
away
we
with
ended
it.
up holding it anyway.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the game just sort of descended into a bit of a trading competition from there. I refused to send my second unit of Sanctifiers. Like, I really slow played that unit. The Rhino sat in the corner of the ruin on the UKTCL, and I was like, we're not going to send it. I'm just going to keep this unit here, and we are going to wait to see what happens. Right?
Yeah.
Like, if I give up this unit too early, I'm going to open the doors for him to really all in me.
Yeah.
Maybe get some ball control, because obviously I don't have full back and shoot
No,
ranged.
exactly. You can
The
get
one
tied
thing
up.
they really lack.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to keep this unit around so that, if he does go all in, he's gonna die.
Mm.
And we play this trading game for a few turns. He gives me a turn where, despite me holding the Sanctifiers back, I go, well, actually, if I send them out this turn and I project the Overwatch threat, they become another thing he has to kill on an objective.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to deny him going anywhere in this middle of this board, and it's going to give Val loads of space to go along the bottom of the board and take his expansion. And effectively, when I did that, he couldn't then deal with everything that was on there. He'd run out of Talos by this point, so he struggled to kill vehicles. He only had the one unit of Scourge in the corner that could, I think we all know Scourge are not the most reliable unit at the best of
Oh,
time.
it's a running
Even
conversation in England camp right now,
yeah,
isn't
even
it?
even less so when your opponent goes, "Oh, is that one wound?" Or I'm just going to auto pass that. Let's not really worry
Yeah,
about
I remember. Yeah, shooting
that.
Scourge at sisters is soul destroying because you get that
Yeah.
one lance through, and they're like, "Nah, I'm all
So
right."
so once all the Talos were dead, sort of by turn 3, 4, I was like, okay, we can really push out now and just establish our board presence. So even with him going second and getting the 15 at the end of the game, it didn't matter because I was just too far up on primary at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So that's day one, 3-0. Only got an entire GT still to play.
Yep.
So what did you hit on day 2?
So I played Mr. Josh P. I
On the
think he's
Warhorde.
Yeah, he's known for being a rather violent individual when it comes to his playstyle. I can't think of anyone in the UK at the minute that plays Warhammer quite as aggressively as that man.
Yes, yes.
Now, he certainly felt he was favoured going into it.
He's a
I felt
confident
he was
lad.
favoured going into it. But I was like, but I'm not playing an army I don't know this time. Like when I played him at Glasshammer, I was like,
Yeah.
so we're going to see what we can do. Now, he goes first. He's infiltrate blocked my scout moves and stuff with commando, so I can't do anything too exciting with my turn 1. And so I don't really do anything exciting with my turn 1. In fact, I think he actually goes first. I think he postures his commandos up, doesn't really do anything with them. And then in my turn 1, I kill the commandos. But what he has done is he's pushed a battle wagon up quite far up the board. And for what it's worth, I actually think it's a decent play because it's not very easy for me to kill without overcommitting. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have one Immolator, one Castigator that can shoot it from this side of the table. And like I talked about earlier, when Retributors, they had to be used as a screen here because I don't really have any other screens. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe I just kill this battle wagon if I get lucky, right?
Maybe
Like, it's
you
not
do.
impossible. It
Yeah.
absolutely can happen. So I put the Retributors out to sort of act as a screen because yes, while Gaz's unit can go through models, the rest of the army can't.
Yeah.
And I think you can make it very untempting for them to war if the only thing they get to go in with is Gaz's unit.
Completely.
I've been quite careful to layer up my screens as well, so it's not super easy for Gaz to just jump over everything. And it's very likely that actually Gaz gets stuck in front of the first screen, which is going to drop him 6 inches of movement probably, which means that the sort of core of my army isn't going to get charged super early game. Now, spoilers, I do get lucky and kill this battle wagon with the Retributors and Castigator and It did require a pretty high miracle dice and the cheeky CP reroll on one of the damage
that
rolls.
sounds tough, man.
So we killed it with a wound, which I think it sets me up in an excellent spot because his follow-up turn is now really tricky to decide what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Does he war now, where he only really gets to activate Gaz's unit and the 2 units that have got out of the battle wagon? Arguably not not necessarily worth it enough, or does he hold off on it and do it the next turn? He elects not to. I think we talked about it afterwards. I think he needed to war there because he needed to get the Invan onto his army. Because I'm now also staged up to do damage in the following turn. So he gives me, he drives his truck with the flash gits up. His flash gits have got out the wagon, moved towards the Retributors to try and take the middle objective off them and Thurger. I overwatch and kill 3, as you do with your multi-motors hitting on 6s.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely.
So now he's like, oh, now I have to give you another actual unit. Because I've got Dominions nearby that can reactive. I've got a 2-op save model on the objective. So he's forced into giving me another unit to contest that objective. And I'm like, okay, I think this is going excellently for me now. Because in my head, I'm like, this turn, if everything goes really well, he's going to lose his Breaker Boys, he's going to lose his Knobs, he's going to lose his Flash Gits, and it's going to leave him very thin on the ground for his war turn. So I really go very aggressively. I pick up the truck with the Flash Gits in it. I kill all the Flash Gits inside the truck. Actually, I think I left 1, but regardless, point still stands. And I managed to get a Sanctifier unit that could shoot its 2 once per game flamers and plasma at his Knobs, and all of its other flamers at some Breaker Boys. Now, he pops a -1 to wound, which doesn't make me the most efficient, but I think I only ended up killing 1 model from each unit. The average is I should kill way more from each unit. That's just one of those things that happens sometimes. It's like, okay, a little unfortunate, but we'll manage. And I think he now goes, oh, I have to war now. Otherwise, I am just dead the following turn.
Yeah.
So he wars. He comes in with a lot of stuff. I lose a lot of stuff. I think I get a bit lucky in that he fails a 6-inch charge with his Breaker Boys that they reroll for free.
Nice.
Which I suppose probably makes up for the fact that between me shooting them and overwatching them, I had still only killed 1 model. And the Gaz unit rolls a 6 on his advance, but because I've layered the screens up at this point, rather than getting into the heart of the army where Varl and my other 2 units of Retributors are, it in fact gets stuck in front of an empty Immolator, an empty Rhino, a solo Canoness, and 5 Dominions.
Yeah.
Yes, is it going to pick up pretty much all of those units? Of course it is.
Yeah.
But I don't need any of those units at this point. They can all die.
Yeah.
So he comes in wars, does a lot of damage, and in my head I'm like, okay, I think I just kill you now. I think I have enough guns left on the board. With Varl shooting and fighting, I can kill the whole Gaz brick. I've got enough heavy bolters and autocannons to chuck down at some knobs in the middle that I can kill them. I can kill the other things that have poked out with Retributors. And it doesn't quite go to plan. Like a lot of things that should have died, certain activations went, I rolled some 5-up invans more than I should, and survived the turn, which I think is what made it very tight at the end of the game. I think if I actually kill the units I think I'm expected to kill that turn, I think I win by like 15 to 20 points. But because 1 unit of Knobs refused to die for a couple of turns, and Makari decided he wanted to try and scam me once again, I left Gaz alive as well. It just gave him just enough units after that to really get quite a lot of points out of the game. And that ended up being my closest game of the weekend with a singular point win.
I did see it was only a 1-point win. So, yeah, well done to Josh. And well done for you for getting past it as well. Because, yeah, definitely a scary matchup if you can get rushed and tagged and everything else can be really difficult. So that's one of several very high-ranking players you're going to have to go through to win this event, Jack. But that's 1 down. So what happened in Game 5?
Well, I played this guy called Ben Jones.
Oh, well, there you go. There's another one. Immediately, straight out the gate.
Now, I think this was a matchup where I was like, okay, this is it. This is the challenge game of the weekend, right? This will probably be, in terms of technical Warhammer playing, my hardest game of the weekend. Ben definitely knows what he's doing. He's playing Eldar, which he definitely knows what he's doing with. And I was like, okay, traditionally, again, Sisters have a pretty good matchup into Eldar if you have Seraphim. Without Seraphim, it becomes a very interesting game, I think, because you're both doing the same sort of things as each other. But because I don't have Seraphim and he has Warp Spiders, I can be really jailed by the Overwatch threat and he can't. So it's how do we manage that? Now, I get to go first here again. Ben, I think disrespected the Sanctifiers a little bit. And we talked about their threat range before the game. and I think maybe he thought he'd rather just not give up units to stop it, and if it happens, it happens. I went first. I drove my Sanctifiers up to that same corner ruin on Search and Destroy. I hopped out so that I was just in range of one Warp Spider, so if they overwatch me, I'm not likely to lose anything problematic.
No.
But I'm also in range of Jane Zar's unit, and I can also shoot some Hawks. And at this
Ooh.
point, I'm like, well, you know, why not push the boat out a bit more? I've got a Rhino and my Sanctifiers there. Why not send this Immolator up to the top as well that can shoot across into some Hawks?
Ooh.
And I'm like, let's see if we can, if I can get my expansion on lockdown this turn through the same method I talked about sort of right at the beginning of the video. And that is pretty much what ended up happening. The Sanctifiers, well, actually, I think first of all was the Rhino and the Immolator shot and killed 5 Swooping Hawks, which was like, cool, great, that's a unit gone.
Yep.
Then the Sanctifiers shot. I think I put most of the Flamers into Jane Zar's unit, and I think I put 2 of the Flamers into the Warp Spiders. I barely touched the Warp Spiders, only killed 2. But Jane Zar's unit had a critical dice failure and lost all of them apart from Jane Zar. And I was like, oh, that means she can't advance and charge for the rest of the game.
Yeah, that's scary.
Which then meant that my expansion was really locked down at that point, because the only
Yeah.
thing that could reach it was 3 Warp Spiders, which isn't reliably
It's not gonna
clearing
do
the
it.
tank and the
Yeah.
unit on it. And I think that kind of sets up the tone for the rest of the game, really, where Ben struggles to hold his expansion objective
Mm-hmm.
because I just have waves of stuff I can send over to it.
Yeah.
I've got mine on lockdown, and he can't really contest mine. So, you know, while I'm a little bit behind on assets, because I'm trading a few more units than he is every turn, the score's really building up in my favor. We both have a horrendous turn 3 with dice rolling. We both completely failed everything we tried across the board, which resulted in, you know, the Fire Dragon's Wave Serpent surviving on a wound, his Falcon surviving on 2 wounds, my Immolator surviving 5 Fire Dragons in metal range.
Classic.
Like, we both just failed on both sides to do anything.
Yeah.
Which I think, because I think that was far more beneficial to me than it was Ben. That put Ben, you know, when you're trying to play that late game, I made my opponent to be mopped up so I can come out on turn 4
And you need to catch up, right?
If you both have a bad turn and the board state doesn't really change, it favors the person who's already got control of the board, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then Ben, I think, makes his. We talk about. I think it was his mistake of the game, which was that he overwatched 5 Dominions that I would say were bait to just get the Overwatch out, that were going to go over to his Wave Serpent, kill it, and get all the dragons out.
Yeah.
And he overwatched them and killed the unit. Like, with 3 spiders, I was like, okay, it happens. What this now lets me do is it means the Sanctifier unit in the Rhino in the corner of this ruin can now reach his, you know, that the flat plate that everything can walk over without getting overwatched by Lycus's squad, which is now staged up there. So now I go over there, I flame most of Lycus's squad to death. I now set up an Overwatch, and he now has to kill this unit.
My little elf heart's crying here. This is horrible. It's a barbecue.
And he definitely should have killed this unit with his Banshees. But they left like 4. I rezzed a couple. They fell back. Next turn, he charged them again with the same 5 Banshees. Left 1. I rezzed 3. Stole his home objective for a second time. And I think that was what really landslided the game from being like a 5-point game to a 20-point game. And it effectively got me through the rest of the game, no matter what.
It's a huge result. It's a huge win. It sounds like some early momentum and early tempo there was really important.
I think.
And do you think first turn's big in this one, or is that one where you say you think you like it?
I would rather have gone second.
Okay, there you go.
I think when you have 2 people who are playing these trading armies and really know what they're doing, I think going second is just always an advantage,
100%.
where you have that 15 in the back pocket. But I think this is one of those games where I was talking about earlier, where if you're playing Hallowed Martyrs, I think you'd have found it really tricky to attack.
You don't have the reach, right? You don't have the reach in the punch.
And I think if they know your tricks as Hallowed Martyrs, I think it's very tricky to leverage them as well.
Yeah. And because Eldar is so it is double phase and both phases wherever it wants them. It's not like it doesn't struggle to apply
Yeah,
multiple phases of damage to one area of the board. Let's face it. So yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely
yeah.
right.
I think this was the game where I was like, oh, okay, we could be in with it now.
Yeah,
I got through
absolutely.
Ben
I
Jones.
was going to say you've
David
beaten
had lost the
two
game.
big players at that
Yeah,
point.
David
Is
lost the game by this point. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, there's a world here. We'll see how it goes.
So let's talk about the run in then. You've still got at this stage 3 games left.
3 games. Yep.
So how did you muddle through those to take the
Well,
title?
game 6 was the Sisters Mirror I played on
Oh,
stream.
against Mikey, yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think this really sums up the difference in approaches where when all of your units do damage and some of your units do damage, the person whose all of their units do damage, it's very tricky to deal with.
yeah,
Especially when all of those units have twice the threat range that all of yours do. Now it was Terraform again, which is it's probably a better mission for him because he's got a lot of stuff that doesn't want to do damage. He just wants to stand in places and do things.
yeah,
Um, but I kind of get how Hallowed Martyrs works. I spent a lot of time playing Hallowed Martyrs in the Index,
yeah,
and I understand what I should and shouldn't be trying to interact with. Now he goes first if I remember right, and he moves up and he starts threatening a bunch of terraforms all over the place. The game starts off on a really evil note where he scout moves his immolator down the side. He drives his immolator up 12, and I'm like, cool. Are you happy to proc my Dominion's reactive move? And he's like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. I was like, cool. I roll it, and in my head, I'm like, if I roll a high number here, I can block his disembark from being able to shoot my immolator. I then proceed to roll a 6, and I'm like,
yeah,
all right, they're going over there, and you can kind of see it from his reaction where he's like, "Oh, this game's already going bad. What am I going to take here?"
yeah,
Which now means that he's given me 2 units, and he's never going to kill one immolator with one immolator,
yeah,
barring like insane dice rolls.
yeah,
He puts his characters on his expansion objective. He puts Celestine there and the Canoness, both of whom res. So the key is to start interacting with Celestine as soon as possible. Because if we get to turn 3 and she's still got a res left, I'm going to have no backfield for the rest of the game. She's going to come over, take my home objective. I'm not going to be able to kill her in one go, and she's going to become a real problem. So my turn 1 is I was like, I'm going to give you 2 castigators to shoot at Celestine here, right? Like in my head, I'm like, this is important enough to burn one of these reses that I'm going to sack. 2 castigators, my whole Dominion unit to either unterraform or if they need to shoot Celestine to get the first res off, and also just make it so he doesn't hold the primary. I've gone second. I have an advantage on primary anyway. Any time I can deny him 4 points is going to make it so much harder for him.
yeah,
Like it's make it so much easier for me to just jump ahead at the end of the game.
yeah,
He gets unlucky, rolls a 1 on his reactive with the Dominions in the middle, which then means the Canoness gets to grenade them all for free. And I'm not too worried about doing my terraforms at this point. I'm not too worried about unterraforming his. The goal is to just kill stuff this turn and then do the terraforms later. I get my Sanctifiers out and I flame, I think, pretty much his whole unit of Archoflagellants to death. I force him to pop the 2-up invuln on the Canoness, just in case I shot her with them and the Dominions.
yeah. Nice.
I burned Celestine's first res, and everything kind of went how I wanted it to turn 1. I killed the Immolator and the Dominions that are off to the side, and I was like,
yeah,
cool. I think I'm in a good enough
in a
spot
strong
now
position. Yeah,
where he really has to put the tempo up. Which is what he does. He brings all of his tanks in. They all come around to shoot me. He sends Morven Val's unit out, and he sort of pushes a lot of the rest of his army minus the jump Canoness he's got in reserve. And I'm like, okay. He shoots. He only just misses the kill on my Castigator by 1 wound with Morven Val and his Castigator. Bit lucky there, I think, to get away with that. So I was like, okay, we've got a lot of stuff I can respond with this turn. And I was like, let's not mess around. I'm just going to go full violence in response. He overwatches with Val almost immediately when a unit of Retributors comes into range. He kills 1 model, which is definitely not how many of those Val should be killing in Overwatch. And I'm like, okay, now I've got my choice of the board. My Sanctifiers on my expansion are now going to run over, take his home objective for 2 to 3 turns, unless he turns around and kills them. And I'm like, I think it's be really tricky for him to get out of this spot. My Retributors one tap Morven Val's Paragon Squad. I then kill Morven. She reses for a CP. I contest the objective with the Canoness on it again. I kill. I don't quite kill Celestine for the second time, but I two tag her in combat with the Retributors and Astrid Thurga, so she can't come and annoy my backfield. I take his home objective, and I'm like, okay, I think this is going to be very tricky for him to respond to. And you know what? He does have a very good go with it. There are a couple of moments where it's like, okay, this can become quite a tight game because my follow up turn to this was very bad. I had pretty bad rolls across the board, and I think if he played this turn perfectly and didn't make any mistakes, I think I could have been in a slightly awkward spot, and we'd had a really interesting late game. I think. What actually happened was he sent his jump pack Canoness out to kill Val in the suits. He didn't stop Val overwatching by charging her with something else first. She then overwatched a jump pack Canoness, killed her in the charge phase, which then meant if he reses, he can't go into combat, which is exactly why I didn't overwatch her in the movement phase, because he just reses the character and charges me anyway. And at that point, I think the game is kind of just over. I've now have Morven Val alive. I still have his home objective. I've still got 2 units of Retributors to use, 2 tanks to use, because he splits fires a lot during this turn and fails to kill the 1 wound castigator. And it just compounds, right? Where I think if he gets if he plays it perfectly, he gets my wounded castigator. You know, he kills the Astrid Thurga unit. He kills Val. He takes my expansion objective, which he did anyway. I think the game suddenly looks a little interesting. I think I can still kill my way out of it, but there is a world where the dice rolls fail me and I don't, right? And then I think things get very interesting. Sort of after that point, we sort of cruise through the rest of the game.
And having now played the Hallowed and Bringers Mirror, would you say you liked Bringers more and the reach and the output was better for you overall?
I think it's definitely better in the Mirror if you know how Hallowed works. Like if you know the strats to watch for. If you don't interact with the example Canoness, which I think I did all game, it was like, do you want to see this Canoness? Nope, no, I don't. That Canoness can exist where it is and not get you any miracle dice. That's fine.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so you've got now 2 games to go. You're up in the dizzying heights, and Purge the Foe rears its head once again. So talk us through this game. This was against John Summerfield's CSM on the UK stream.
I have, I think, a really clever idea while I'm in my hotel room the night before for this game, where I was like, what if I attach the Canoness to 5 bolted Dominions on this mission? Because effectively, I can make this really hard to interact with, where there's no particularly optimal choices on how my opponent wants to deal with this effectively 110 point unit. Where, you know, if I attach a Canoness to the Dominions and the Canoness advances to the middle objective turn 1, I empty out my Rhino so that the Sanctifiers just sit in the ruin, but I have an empty Rhino. And then my opponent has some choices. He can either try to shoot the unit and the Canoness to death, at which point she's going to pop a 2-up in Van and probably survive the turn. Or he can put a model on the objective, at which point I'm going to reactive move 1 inch and get in the Rhino, because all of my models are within 3. So even if I can't clear the wall, I still get to get back in it. At that point, what choice does he make, right? Does he either let me get the hold more, or does he give me a unit for free and make it much easier for me to get kill more? And I'm only talking about it so much because I didn't really get a chance to showcase it because my opponent went with neither of those options and chose violence.
Yeah, he did.
And instead went, well, I'm going to get this unit out, but I'm going to threaten to get this other unit out so you can't reactive move off of the plate. Otherwise, the rubrics are just going to get out and flame her into your
which was quite canny.
I'm like, okay, fine. In my head, I'm like, fine, I'll take a unit of Noise Marines and a unit of rubrics for 5 Dominions and a Canoness. And then Cypher comes out. And then his prime test, not prime test subject, the Dread Reaver Lord comes down at the bottom of the map to come get my immolator. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be a very fast-paced game, I see.
Yeah.
Because I've gone second, so he really feels like he needs to put the pressure on. Especially because I'm already up 2 cards and a kill on turn 1, which he hasn't gotten.
Yeah.
So I'm already, I think, like 8 points ahead. especially when you throw in the fact I'm probably going to be another 8 points up on turn 5. So
Yes,
that's a 16-point advantage if my opponent does nothing.
completely. Yeah,
So he really goes for it, I think, and sort of opens the door to a Varl Ingress to come in and mop up that entire side of the map where he's committed all these units.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason I think Varl was used for this is one, I think Varl is the only thing in my army that consistently kills that many units.
Yeah,
And two, the way of looking at it is Varl is one of my hardest units to kill, right?
yeah,
So on Purge the Foe, I can go have more than Varl and her Paragons at 2 kills, or I'd have to give up 5 units,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
at 5 kills.
Mm-hmm.
Which just makes it that much harder for him to get the kill more in the following round.
Yeah, it's actually a good time to throw her away because the effort's disproportionate
Yeah.
and you're not getting as many kills for it. Yeah, yeah.
And then she can stand there, threaten Overwatch, which controls the Fabius brick, so it then has to take a risky, longer charge from behind the wall. He can't just bring a unit in from reserves on that side, and it just gives me a bit of ball control on his expansion objective.
Mm-hmm.
Now the turn goes pretty well. I clear up everything he's put in the middle. I should probably talk about as well on turn 2 him sending the Rhino over to contest my Rhino. Now, I put a solo Dialogus in my list.
Yes.
This solo Dialogus has one job, which is to unbattle shock Sanctifiers coming out of a Rhino.
Yeah.
This is normally so that they can overwatch a melee unit that's trying to charge them after their Rhino has been killed.
Yeah, I like
but
that.
in this game, what actually happened was my opponent had Tempting Target and I think Secure, so had to take the objective to score it. And what actually happened was he obviously needs to kill my Rhino so that his Rhino could hold it. He kills my Rhino with his Noise Marines using the reroll, hits and Woundstrap. I get all the Sanctifiers out, and as I'm getting them out, I go, oh, my Dialogus is just over there.
Oh,
I can set those up within 12. At which point, because I mentioned it before the game what it did, I see that it clicks with him what's about to happen. And he's like, oh no, I'm going to miss both of these cards. Which again is going to compound the fact that I'm already well ahead on points effectively. And I think that really puts me in a comfortable spot where I have a huge amount of space to work with points wise. So now I can chill the game quite a bit after Val's gone off to deal with that side of the map. And if Val goes out, I get kill more because he's given me like 5 units to kill. And then in his follow-up turn, he tries to get back into it, but he gets really quite unlucky and leaves one model alive in 2 different places, in places where he definitely should have been killing me as well. Which then allows me to get another turn of kill more.
Yeah.
At this point, I've sort of moved away from his Fabius prick, so that the only thing they can charge is a Rhino in the middle that's trying to get me hold more and do cleanse.
Yeah, and that's where Val's sacrifice was quite good, right? Because it sort of kept Bile out on a flank where he didn't affect the game too much.
Yeah, and then Bile comes into the middle, and I have 2 choices here, right? I can either go after a couple of easy kills just to get the kill on the board, or I can just pump every gun into Bile. And in my head, I think the way that I still lose this game is if Bile's unit gets through the turn, gets lucky, and ends up with like 5 models, and then comes over to my expansion, kills a bunch of stuff, tags a bunch of units. And I think that's how I can still lose the game.
Completely.
So I actually get no kills in that turn because I just put every gun into Bile. I think my opponent rolled pretty good on saves. I wasn't really keeping track, but in my head, I think I probably should have killed that unit. Or at least killed it down to just Bile. But we didn't get the kill in the end, which then obviously meant that my opponent got kill more. He didn't get hold more because we put a unit on that objective. And he got kill more in the last turn, just because it was sort of got to a point where I was looking at it and went, okay, I'm X points. I think we were exactly tied if I got hold 1 and kill 1 going into my last turn. So I'm like, okay, we're through the game. I don't need to stress about all these interactions too much now. And I draw my cards and I get extend as one of my cards. It's like, cool, that's the game. I have to kill 1 Legionnaire with about 8 different units. My Dominions in the transport at the top can hop out, go steal his home to get hold more, and that's it. We're through the game. I think there's possibly a way of playing it in the last couple of turns where I can get a bigger win, but I don't need to play it to that in singles.
No, it's more
for teams.
control,
I'd be trying it, but for singles, I'm like, no, we're just going to make sure nothing loses me the game.
100%. and then you're through Purge, and you have one game between you and winning another super major. So, what did you get? How did you get through it?
Well, we drew Halo's Creed Admech, and I'm
Ooh.
not gonna lie, I was
Yeah,
terrified about this game
yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm playing an army with no fly,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he's got a lot of stuff, and a lot of it moves very fast turn one.
Mm.
Um, and I talked to it with my opponent is that I think there was a mistake on him getting the tempo right,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
there was a mistake in deployment with how early and where the infiltrators went down.
Yes, yeah.
So I guess the infiltrator mistake was he put his infiltrators down first, which is like it's fine, but the reason you don't do it is that then I get to counter deploy stuff that can overwatch them
Yes.
because he's going to try and jail me with them, right? Like he's going to go first, he's going to run them forward, and he's going to try and jail me. That's what I need to not have happen. If I can get out of the jail at any point in the game opens right up. So I think that was mistake number one. Mistake number two was that he did go first, and I'm not gonna lie, I thought when this happened that I'd lost the game. I think it was, if he properly jails me here, I think it's very very tricky for me to get any points on the table on take and hold, right? Or not take and hold, sorry, hidden supplies, because I'm not scoring for my home. He can very easily score hold one, hold two, hold more in a way where I can't interact with it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have no answer to the destroyer unit coming in from strat reserves on search and destroy because I can't get any of my screens outside my deployment zone. So my opponent chooses not to jail me, and instead the one infiltrator unit up on my expansion moves. I go cool. I'm going to Overwatch with a castigator. I kill 3.
Mm-hmm.
I've put the Retributor unit I've put on that side of the map is very deliberately the Thurger unit, so that I have just that tiny bit of melee punch in case the Overwatch didn't go very well.
Mm-hmm.
They then charge in. I think the 2 infiltrators kill 5 Retributors, which is unfortunate, but it happens. They Admech do that now.
They do that now, yeah.
With crit 5s, 4 rerolls, sustain 2, they do that.
They kill stuff. Yeah.
But Thurger kills the remaining 2 infiltrators, which is it doesn't look like a lot, but it's actually massive for my ability to score points this game now. Because this now means that my expansion objective is secured, because I'm now just going to auto advance the Sanctifier Rhino onto it, and barring any ridiculous dice rolls, it's going to pretty much be mine for the rest of the game. Which now means that I can put all of my attention into denying the 2 objectives on his side of the map, which is effectively what ends up happening. Val sort of pushes up in a very controlled way where she can't be shot by Ballistari, and because I roll a decent advance on my immolator, I'm able to screen out the bottom right corner of the board from his Cataphren, so they can't shoot Val either. And this really, really gives me a lot of board control that my opponent's like, oh, I have to respond to this. I have to put some units out. I have to try and retake a lot of these objectives.
Yeah.
And I think what ends up happening is he gives me too many units, right? Like he goes, oh, I've got cleanse. Okay, here's 2 units.
Yeah.
Okay,
It felt like they bled out hard on you.
Yeah, and he was like, okay, I want to take your expansion objective. Okay, have 10 infiltrators. Okay, right. I want to take my expansion objective back. Okay, I've still got a unit of infiltrators that are stood in the same place, but also I need to charge 5 Ruststalkers in because the 3 infiltrators are overwatchable by Val.
Yeah.
So then he's like, okay, have 2 more units. And I'm like, okay. I was like, there's a fairly decent chance there's going to be a full send next turn. And I think what really triggers it was he overwatches with his Taraxi into a unit of Retributors that are going to shoot some Ballistari. And he gets unlucky, right? He kills 1 Retributor, right? He should probably kill most of the unit with that. But what it really does is I go, oh, okay, there's no Overwatch on the table now, so my Sanctifiers can now run through midboard completely uncontested.
Yeah.
And I now know you can't ingress the destroyer unit in, so I don't have to. I can play way less KG because I'm going to know where it can come in now and where it can be. And what ends up happening is the Sanctifiers come out, they shoot his infiltrators to death with some supporters and castigators, but importantly, they charge his rangers. And this charge gives them just enough movement that his Cataphrons now have to come in literally in their own deployment zone. And he's got a scary Overwatch unit sat in front of about 4 of his units.
Yeah.
And I think this one move really was like, okay,
Yeah, that's decisive, I
I
think.
have control of the game now.
Yeah.
There was a couple of moments where, if his Rust Stalkers get really lucky and kills all 3 Paragons and Val, the game opens right up again. That shouldn't happen, and instead the opposite happened, and he in fact killed no Paragons or Val, and then lost that fight. And at that
Yeah.
point, the game was definitely over.
Yeah.
I'm going to have too much primary. I've got too many units. I've got too much board control. There's going to be very little that can be done to come back from that.
Yeah, 100%. And that saw you through. And ultimately, as I was saying to people on the stream covering it, in quite a few of these games, we saw your in-depth knowledge of sisters and also your wider knowledge. The fact that you really understood how both armies interacted was getting you through games, because often your opponent just did not have the same fix on how things were going to go, and was making a few little errors here and there, which you capitalized on beautifully every time. And that was, again, that's a testament to skill, right? At the end of the day, game knowledge, in-depth game knowledge is all about skill and repetition and effort. And that really shone for you, I think, in those final games, which takes you through to become the winner of Coventry Super Major, which has to be the hardest one, I think, to win in terms of the number of games, the caliber of opponent, the sort of the marathon nature of it is really, really tough. So you did an incredible job there. So very, very well done, Jack. And as I say, as far as his sisters go, would you say one of the strongest armies in the game right now? Are you enjoying them?
Yeah, I think they're incredibly strong.
Yeah.
I'm going to risk, sounding a bit. I think while their win rate this weekend was, I think, in the 60s, I don't think they're a 60% win rate faction. I think that is a symptom of the fact that of the 8 people playing them at Coventry,
the unknown factor a little bit. Yeah,
7 of them are very good and capable players.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For what it's worth, I do still think there's a couple of things with sisters that need tweaking down. I think Retributors need to go back to the points they were before they got buffed, and not also get a points decrease. And Sanctifiers, I think you can put them up a tiny bit, but also I think when they start getting to like 120 points for a unit, they look a little bit overcosted when compared to other options that they may have. But I think Sisters are in a really strong spot at the minute, and I actually think the Codex is better now than it was on release. Not necessarily in terms of power, but in terms of how wide the Codex is now.
I think that's exactly right. It just feels like there's a toolkit. Yeah,
the Codex on release was all about Bringers of Flame. The Codex now there's loads of units are viable, loads of detachments are viable, and I think it's really close to being one of the game's, I think, best codexes in terms of getting to play what you want to play.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and it's been fascinating watching it because no 2 lists are the same that I'm really seeing. There's a few who are really doubled down on the lots of sacrosancts in Champions. That list's a bit cookie cutter, but every other list I'm seeing for Sisters at the moment is slightly different, and every Sisters list at Coventry indeed was slightly different. And again, you've got different special characters popping up. The Triumph is still popping up. I think there's so much out there to be explored for Sisters players, and I think having had a bit of a sort of dud year since Bringers was put in the ground, I think it's really nice for the faction to have that book back and to be in a good place. So, yeah, wonderful. Jack Tite, thanks so much for coming on. Just to reiterate to everybody, if you want to get some coaching with Jack, he is very much available via 6++, so he'd love to work with you.
Please do.
Absolutely. And we will see you all again next time. Please do hit like and subscribe on the video, guys. And we'll be back with State of Play in the near future. See you later. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.